Video games have been around for a long time. AI-generated slop, or in this case gems, are a relatively new thing. If we combine the old with the new, we end up somewhere in between, with one question, and one question only. Can you beat Postal 2 as the Triple T himself, Tung 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 Sahur? To start off, I feel it is appropriate to outline the rules of this challenge. They're actually really simple. Ready? I can only use the baseball bat, as Tung 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 himself intended. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Postal 2, but the game is very much balanced around firearms. Not to say that the melee isn't good in this game. It is, but most combat is designed around the assumption that you'll be able to use a gun. And because I'm already crippling myself, I've decided to play on an easier mode. I might have syphilis, but at least I get to be on morphine to make it slightly better. Postal 2 is an older game. Older games have levels, it's no exception to that. The entire game is structured in days of the week. So here's a fun fact. The baseball bat is not available until the 3rd level. Shocking, I know. Which means until I can acquire it, I am stuck with nothing but my thoughts and words to lob at my opponents. Monday started out with immense confusion, as I'd only played this game on my Steam Deck. I looked around the beautiful yard I had and made an executive decision. I was going to try to avoid picking up non-essential weapons, if I could help it. But behind that shovel you're seeing there was a healing pipe. Unfortunately, I missed it. Cops drop weapons, people drop weapons. I'm surprised that with every step I took, probably crushing some poor dandelion, it too did not drop weapons or items. I would eventually fail this part of the challenge, but considering it wasn't the main part, I was more or less fine with that. I got distracted by a shiny disc on a ledge for a moment, admittedly, and a little kitty cat on the street, which ran around playing tag with me while I kept accidentally opening up the map. I lost it in a small crowd and soldiered on. It was decided that I would go get the milk later, as I would probably need money from picking up my paycheck and cashing in said paycheck. And until we get to that, remember, I'm basically just a civilian. This part kinda sucked, but honestly I figured it was better than what came next. I chased down another kitty before staring at a vending machine full of weapons that I could not have. This was a downer. But at least I could go to my place of employment and hopefully find fulfillment there. On the way, I found another kitty cat, and this time I got to pick it up. I walked by some protesters, and much like the current state of the American job market for starting positions, every door I tried had nothing behind it except for emptiness and broken promises. I found my boss, was immediately laid off, and the protesters turned violent. This was my first combat scenario, so while my boss pulled the weapon and fought, I ran. After all, he fired me. The minimum wage in Arizona is $15. I love you, Vince Desi, but I'm not dying to fill my car up with 2 teaspoons of gas for you. I ran to the bank. Well, running was something of an exaggeration. One of the women from the protesting groups ambushed me, and despite this, I tried chasing another cat for whatever reason. Place your bets now. How many cats will I have by the time we're done here? I'll reveal it at the end of our little adventure together. Anyway, I waited in line.
Hey, I'd like to make a deposit.
And how much did you need to deposit?
$20.
All right, let's change your account.
You rule.
You're welcome.
For a decent while, actually. When I finally got my paycheck, no good hooligans entered and initiated a robbery. They told me to get down, and I followed that order with great ambition. To my shock, it actually went well. Though I do think the lady behind the desk was really confused about the whole thing.
What? What? Huh? Huh? What? He's killing everyone!
After the officers turned their body cameras off, I left and was immediately the target of another assassination attempt. On the way to the grocery store, I ran into another group of protesters. I think this town is just 90% protesters. The police handled it, and I was off to buy a $5 quart of goat milk. Originally, I was going to do a bit here where I cross-referenced the prices of said commodity and reminded the Arizonians that they do live in what I imagine to be hell. But A, it actually costs more than $5 now, and B, I've seen the temperatures there. I think they already know. On Tuesday, I encountered a marching band playing one of our nation's greatest marches, the Stars and Stripes Forever. I am so sorry for what's about to happen if you're a normal person unlike myself, but fun fact zone. The Stars and Stripes Forever was composed by John Philip Sousa. Sousa? I wouldn't know, but he was the literal GOAT of American marches. In 1896, mind you. If there's a song sung at a parade or wherever else you may hear symbols of America, especially this year as we enter our 250th year of existence, Sosa was probably behind it. I'm gonna call him Sosa. According to Sosa's autobiography, he wrote it on Christmas Day on a ship returning from vacation in Europe with his wife, and what a gift to this country it has been. It was once used as an emergency march in theaters in the 20th century, apparently. Back when theaters had actual bands, they'd play this tune to alert authorities of a life-threatening emergency to avoid scaring the audience outright. Fair enough. Source is Wikipedia, though, so if you bring that up trying to pull a guy or a girl at some local social gathering as a fun fact, and they call you a doofus, that's not on me. Despite being composed in 1896, it took until 1987 for it to become the official national march of the United States of America. I cannot reiterate how absolutely crucial this guy is to this country's aura. If you've heard this, or this, or maybe even this once or twice. All Sosa. And those are just the prominent examples. He wrote 136 marches. If you are a marching band student, I've probably incited some sort of post-traumatic stress response deep within the very essence of your being. And for that, I guess I'm kind of sorry. Anyway, I know what you're here for, and it's not American musical history. It's Tung 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 Sahur. Back to it. The joy of patriotism was destroyed when the marching band blew up, and I went on to try and get signatures for my petition. Frankly, I didn't think it would succeed, as most congressmen are at the age where reading begins to become difficult again. But to my surprise, it did in fact succeed. I met a celebrity I didn't recognize, and watched him get mauled by the police for the crime of being small. But not before stealing the latest and greatest in 2026's Kevlar fashion. Afterwards, I went to a library and encountered another group of protesters, reinforcing my whole 90% of this town are protesters theory I had earlier. I frankly don't know what happened. I went in to return my copy of Catcher in the Rye, and when I emerged from the librarian's office, everything was on fire. It was truly awful. Wooden beams collapsed, guns were fired, books burned, but in all of it, there was just this one woman who genuinely did not care in the slightest, and I respect that so much. As I arrived at my town's church, I sensed something was going to happen, and the priests did too, so they left me like all the medkits in existence. I had to wait in the Lord's longest line, so that sucked, but finally I got into that confessional and had to read off my list of sins to the pastor, which included putting cheese and sour cream on most foods I consume and thinking that Burger King is good. Fight me if you will, I just think their fries are better and crispier. After a riveting soul cleanse, a holy war broke out in the parking lot. I'll be honest, this one was a bit rough, and I knew I didn't have that dog in me because the dog inside myself was euthanized 4.5 years ago after it got stuck halfway in an industrial food processor. We called them Stubbs after that, if you can guess why. I had to duck, dodge, and weave away from many people with guns. Luckily, my younger years were spent in front of the Xbox 360's very own Kinect, with all the shame that included in trying to play any game that featured it. So I was used to moving. You don't know shame until someone asks who's echoing in the chat, and you're revealed to be the group Poor, and then you get kicked from the collective Minecraft world. When Wednesday rolled around, I knew what the game plan was. I just needed to go to my local voting station. There lies my treasure, the grand blade of Tung 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 Sahur. The mention of which I'm sure punched you in the face like Mike Tyson fighting literally anyone else but Jake Paul, because at this point in writing the script, I entirely forgot that was the premise of this challenge. I'm sure Triple T will reward me for my devotion when Sam Altman forcibly uploads our souls to the Eternal Torment data center that is being built in Yellowstone Park by Palantir and Peter Thiel. Maybe my cage will be slightly bigger or something. I got my bat and immediately tested it out on the local police. It's not as bad of a weapon as I once thought. Realistically, in small groups of enemies, one may even call it good. It seems to be a two-hit weapon, sometimes, I guess. In larger groups of enemies or against enemies with shotguns, the story was a lot different. The latter exception would be important later and cause something of a challenge. I learned the important lesson that food is as free as you want it to be with the power of violence. Believe it or not, the minimum wage worker didn't even flinch as my bat crushed her skull. There wasn't even a sound, it was just darkness. With my newfound weapon, I forged a path to a location where I could find some Christmas trees. Just as I did, the average citizen of whichever state, nation, or locality you despise the most decided to engage me in combat. I shoved the rest of the donuts I stole from the gas station into my bullet wounds, and they worked well enough. As I was escaping from the dangerous citizens of Sesame Street, the Paw Patrol chose to attack me. Unlike real life, I had hoped that the police could protect me when I was in danger, so I hopped up on a squad car and let them deal with the feral hounds. Luckily they were pit bulls, so the police immediately opened fire. God saw this action though, and did not approve.
That.
As I made my way to church to disrespect the dead, I realized a crucial error as I urinated on a tombstone. The baseball bat can knock someone's head off, which doesn't sound like a bad thing. Sounds like a good thing, really, for a weapon. Until you realize that zombies in Postal 2 only die when their head is destroyed, which does not include getting it knocked off. I looked high, I looked low, but no zombie head could be found. I spent the next few minutes of my finite human life playing Ring Around the Rosie with a zombie in a game that came out before I even existed. When it died, I thought I'd failed the quest. But I had merely urinated on the wrong grave. That was on me, to be honest. I'll take the fall for that one. As I admired my work, the citizens of Sesame Street returned and kidnapped me. They dressed me up in a leather suit. I took a moment to appreciate how closely I appeared to that picture of the human dolphin. Yeah, you like this? Do you like this? Is... I know, right? This was by no means a walk in the park. Bert and Ernie had invested in 12-gauge shotguns. The primary function of a shotgun is that it shoots pellets that spread. Fine if I'm further away, but I have a baseball bat. I need to be close. I ran, absorbed enough lead to make Flint, Michigan blush, and eventually reunited with the bat. I used it to fight my way out and made my way to pick up the laundry. I was out of money, and even if I wasn't going to pay $100 for laundry. So I gave the man at the counter a love tap and took my clothes from behind him. Finally, I returned home for the day. Thursday was genuinely the nothing ever happens portion of the game. I guess to an extent that makes sense because a certain surprise awaits you once you get to Friday, so Thursday feels very bland in comparison. I actually waited for a few days because I genuinely didn't want to script this part. I guess all I can remember is the fact that I went and got the stakes. The game introduced me to a new foe in this area, or a foe that I hadn't mentioned yet. The ATF. The ATF are armored, heavily armored. My one-trick pony of bashing heads open with my bat didn't really work on them. They had plastic helmets that could deflect my strikes. It's a shame, but I did what I could. As I think I mentioned earlier, and I'm not going to check because I'm voice acting this and I'm not going to scroll up and lose my place, the bat can be sometimes problematic, and not mean tweet during COVID problematic, more like sometimes it kills people in a single hit, sometimes 10 sort of way. It truly is the weapon of Tung 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 Sahur. Anyway, I visited Disney World and I got in a fight with the rat, who fell victim to my wooden baton. Fairly standard stuff. Not much to say other than to remark at how quickly he died. I was actually stressed for this fight because Lockheed Martin had equipped him with a rocket launcher, but he was smart enough to know that if he got too close, he'd blow us both up, which is in fact the foundation of international politics in a nuclear-armed world. Look at all the fun things I'm learning today. The nice man at the counter requested too much money, so rather than go and acquire some through legal means, I beat him and his colleagues to death. I played hide and seek with the fun officers and encountered the ATF again. Here's how long it takes to neutralize just one of them in real time.
You probably thought you weren't gonna die today. Surprise.
I ran around and eventually found my dress and became the prettiest princess in all of the Mushroom Kingdom. They let me go after that. Finally, I needed to visit the local OpenAI data center. Due to running out of potable water after consuming it all, the entire facility erupted into flame. It was all worth it though, because shareholder profit was at an all-time high. Getting in was one thing, escaping was another entirely. I'm very bad at navigating older games. There was no exception here. I pranced around before finding my way out and returning home. Friday has come, and with it the final challenges. I'll go over them real quick so I can cover the apocalypse, which happens at the end of Postal 2, that and the special message I have for anyone still watching. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, the final cat count. I stole a part from the junkyard and was forced to wander a maze as my punishment. I peed into a tube in order to be healed of some form of miscellaneous illness. I picked up a package, which was certainly no easy feat, as there were people everywhere who were very, very hostile to me beating the front desk managers to death like that. I visited my uncle and gave him a birthday gift, and ran before the ATF set fire to the compound. Finally, it was time. The apocalypse. Cats, dogs, all of them rained from the sky like meteors. I ran, and ran, and ran. Everyone was fighting, which was pretty entertaining. Finally, I made it home, and I beat Postal 2 as Tung 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 Sahur. If you liked this video, please comment on an idea for another. This idea came to me after waking up from a particularly long nap, and I may never have one so good again, so I will need help. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe, as much as I am going to ask for feedback. It's been a long time since I've made anything, and I've never made anything as involved as this. If there's anything you didn't like about this, or anything you think I did well on or could improve on, please tell me. I feel I've learned a lot about the software I'm using and about content as a whole. But you tell me. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, leave them here in the comment section. That, or I'll make a designated questions, comments, and concerns post on the weird post tab that YouTube added in my 4 or 5 year hiatus. Goodbye, good day, and good luck. I had 10 cats at the end, by the way.